Okay, then year 6. I'm going to stretch you today. Okay, so let's switch on. Hopefully you've done a little bit of work on ordering fractions this year. If you haven't, then obviously we did some yesterday and you'll have done some in year 5 as well. But you're going to order fractions. So we're going to look at 2 fractions and you're going to identify which of the fractions is the biggest, the largest. Okay, so first question we're going to look at. I've said we've got 2 identical chocolate bars, all right? I've got Spud's bar, which is 4 pieces, mine, okay? And I've eaten 1/4 of my chocolate bar. Your bar, 12 pieces, and you've eaten 7 pieces of yours, okay? Or 7 fractions. But obviously, in life, we don't really use the word fractions. We'll say pieces, or if it was pizza, we'd say slices, wouldn't we? All we need to remember is those pieces, those slices, they're the same size. Okay, so I've eaten 1/4 of my chocolate bar. So I'm just going to shade it in like that. Okay, you've eaten 7 pieces of yours. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so by visually representing what we've eaten, it's pretty obvious, isn't it, that you've eaten more than me. Okay, so 7/12, because there's 12 pieces in total of yours. 7/12 is greater than 1/4, isn't it? Okay, and if we can write them like that, even better. Right, so we're not always going to be able to draw the fractions like that, so we need to come up with a quicker way. So you can see here I've written me, 1/4, you, 7/12, and I've said, right, the question is, what's the most accurate way to compare fractions? Answer, get the denominator for both fractions to be the same. Okay, so once the denominator is the same, so if we gave ourselves 2 random, and we had 2 test scores, let's just say test. Oh, that's scrappy, isn't it? Sorry about that. So we had 2 test scores, okay? And in this one, someone got 28, and in this one, someone got 32. And we said, right, which of those scored the highest, A or B? Well, it's easy, isn't it? Because we can just say, well, they're both out of 35, and B got 32, so they got 4 more right. Okay, so when the denominator is the same, it's really easy to compare fractions. So that's what we're going to do now. So you can see here, I've said, right, we've got 1/4 for me and you've got 7/12. So let's think about how can we get my denominator, this 4, to become a 12. And we need to think about it in terms of multiplication and division. Change the colour of my pen. So, yeah, you're right. If I multiply my denominator by 3, so if I multiply this 4 by 3, it becomes a 12. Whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So I also have to multiply this 1 by 3. And I get 3/12. So you can see now, by getting our denominator to be the same, it's obvious that 3/12 is less than 7/12. Okay, or 1/4 is less than 7/12. So, you can see here, I've given you 6 to solve, which is the largest fraction. So remember, if we go back to this one, actually, the answer is to get the denominator to be the same through multiplication or division. Now, I'm going to be really kind. All of yours, if you multiply the first fraction by a number, I'm not going to tell you what that number is, then it will become the same as the denominator on the second number. Okay, so for this first one, actually I'm going to be really kind. You've got 1/3 or 2/12. Well, let's think about if you multiply the first fraction by 4, that 3 is going to become 12. And then remember, you have to also multiply the numerator by 4. So I've talked long enough. The only one which is slightly trickier is F. I'm not going to say anything. I just want to see if you can solve it. Okay, so pause the screen now. And when you're ready to go through the answers, press play. Okay, fab. So what I'm going to do is whichever fraction I need to convert, okay, to get the denominator to be the same as the larger denominator, I'm going to write underneath. So I'll change the pen to red. So I was really kind, wasn't I? And I said we needed to multiply this first fraction by 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. 1 times 4 is 4. So which is larger, 1/3 or 2/12? Well, it must be 1/3 because 1/3 is also 4/12. So in the answer, it's really important I put whichever fraction was in the question. Okay, so for the next one, B, what do I multiply this 3 by to get it to become 9? I multiply it by 3 again. So 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 3 is 6. So which is larger, 2/3 or 5/9? Well, it's 2/3, isn't it? Because 2/3 is the same as 6/9. See what we're doing? Next one, C. Again, I multiply it by 3. God, they're all the first fraction, aren't they? So multiply it by 3, multiply it by 3. 1/5 or 2/15? Well, it's 1/5, isn't it? Because it's equivalent to 3/15. Next one, 3/7 or 10/21. God, there's another multiplied by 3. What's going on? So if I multiply this first fraction by 3, it becomes 9/21. Hooray! So this time, it's the second fraction, which is the largest, 10/21. Next one. Right, I apologise. I can't believe this one is also times 3. I didn't do this on purpose. So if I multiply this first fraction by 3, it becomes 15/24. So which is larger, 5/8 or 12/24? It's 5/8. Okay, this last one, I'm going to move it up so we've got a bit of room. Now, you had to multiply both fractions. That's why it's more challenging. Because if you count up in 3s, you do not land on 5. So you've got to think, right, what do 3 and 15 go into? Or to use the mathematical term, what's the first multiple, the common multiple of 3 and 15? It's 3 and 5, sorry. It's 15, isn't it? I just gave you the answer. So what you multiply this fraction by, if we want this 3 denominator to become 15, we multiply it by 5. So I've already done it. 3 times 5 is 15. 1 times 5 is 5. And then if we look at this side, what do I multiply this 5 by for it to become 15? Times it by 3. So I need to do the same thing to the numerator. 2 times 3 is 6. So which is larger, 1/3 or 2/5? Well, you can see there, when I've changed them both, okay, and found equivalent fractions for both, 2/5 is bigger because 2/5 is 6/15 and 1/3 is only 5/15. So there are your answers. They were really tricky, okay, and if you haven't done it for a while, then you would have found it challenging. Well done though, if you got some of them right. And again, hats off to you for using the method, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.